I think ChatGPT came out in November of 2022. I think everyone was excited. I was also super curious. I started dabbling in the space, started playing around with a bunch of tools. And I think with anything where there's sudden abundance of things, I think there's always a need for curation, the need for telling people, hey, this is what you should buy or this is what you should take. So I think everything AI kind of came from there.
If anybody's coming from a non-tech AI background, how do he start his AI career?
One is, I think, truly identify what is your method of learning. Some people like to read a lot. Some people like to watch videos. I'm highly impatient. So I'm like, okay, how do I give me stuff to build, give me stuff to and I like talking to people. So one of my things was immediately start playing around with ChatGPT. How do I apply it for marketing? So created a bunch of things around that. We are trying to mimic the way the brain works by putting it into a artificial being. Right, which could be a computer, which could be a supercomputer. It is supremely difficult to build a complex LLM that has multiple data points. If you look at they're saying ChatGPT 5 is going to have 1 trillion parameters. Others 175 billion parameters. You have LLMs that have been trained on 1 billion parameters, right? So it is very difficult to build a model that is super intelligent across all areas.
You have been working with so many founders, right? So what would be the red flags for all the AI founders right now?
Welcome back to the Last Laugh podcast. Anirudh Narayan, आपने ये नाम तो सुना ही होगा. AI स्पेस में ये इंसान ने बहुत ही ज़्यादा तबाही मचाई हुई है. He is the one who is the founder of everything.ai and also the CBO for Lizer.ai. इनके साथ जब मैंने बात की है तो आपको ये समझ जाएगा कि इनका एक्सपीरियंस, नॉलेज उनको कहां से कहां लेकर जा रहा है. एंड प्लस यू विल ऑल्सो गेट सो मच ऑफ वैल्यू एडेड कॉन्टेंट दैट यू विल स्टार्ट थिंकिंग, विल AI रिप्लेस जॉब्स और नॉट? यस गाइज, अगर आप AI के स्पेस में अपना करियर स्टार्ट करना चाहते हो, दिस इज द राइट पॉडकास्ट फॉर यू. सो लेट्स एंजॉय द शो. बट बिफोर वी एंजॉय द शो, why not subscribe me, guys? I have been giving you value-add content from almost last 6 months. Forward this to not only one person, but forward this to minimum 3 people जिसकी life आप change करना चाहते हो. So, not only subscribe me, but share the content whom you think that you will add value to. Enjoy the show.
So thank you so much to be on this podcast, and I hope that whoever is watching the episode, they get a super value add from this particular episode. So I have been looking at your ventures. I want to know more about your ventures, right? So I think 2 of your startups, one is again one of the biggest platform where you are actually having all the AI tools on at one place, right? So I want to know about that journey, and I want to know what motivated you to build that.
Sure, yeah, sure. I think, as soon as ChatGPT came out in November of 2022, I think everyone was excited. I was also super curious. I started dabbling in the space, started playing around with a bunch of tools. And I think with anything where there's sudden abundance of things, I think there's always a need for curation, the need for telling people, hey, this is what you should buy or this is what you should take. So I think everything AI kind of came from there. And I tried to bring parallels from a place of, there's another company I saw called Futurepedia that was already doing 800 to 900,000 visits a month. So I was like, wow, if there's a player that's doing that, I think, can we have an evolved version of it? And they were making good money. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were doing $30,000, $40,000 a month already.
Wow.
Yeah, and solo founder. I met the founder, also pretty cool. So, I think all of that kind of said, okay, maybe there's some room for that. But honestly, yes, the space has changed so much with AI tools itself, right? I feel like my platform also needs to evolve more into an enterprise stack kind of play. But yes, scraped a bunch of tools. There was some manual uploading of tools. There were people reaching out and saying, hey, we want to upload our tool on the platform. So I think a combination of that kind of led to this marketplace. Not bad. We were doing 30,000 visits a month by month 4. So I think now the goal was how do we kind of scale from there. So SEO has to kick in a big way. some form of virality from a community standpoint has to kick in. But I've been parallelly trying to evolve everything AI while joining, I would say, one of my friends who started Lizer,
Yeah.
who's an absolute rock star. I mean, I've actually, when you reached out, I was like, man, I think you should interview him instead of interviewing me.
Yeah. I will definitely record the next episode with him. So
Yeah.
no, so actually the thing is, I want to know the transition because I have been visiting to many colleges for training purpose, right? And there are so many currently according to the national education policy also, there is good motivation from the government, from the university saying that you should involve AI into their courses. But what is happening here is people coming from non-tech background or non-AI background is pretty much confused that how can they take a transition towards AI careers. So want to know from you and your personal story, what has been your education background, and if anybody's coming from a non-tech AI background, how do he start his AI career or start his AI journey?
Good question. I mean, I did my undergrad in biotech. I did my master's in something very analytics focused. I have always been passionate about personal growth. So I think a lot of those kind of things put together has taken and I've done a lot of marketing. So I think a lot of my experience has almost been nothing to do with coding.
Okay.
Right. I've worked with tech startups a lot, but I don't think I've done anything for deep tech. So I think even when I was teaching AI for Founders Growth School, a lot of the content was around how do you apply AI to start
Right.
an idea and scale. So more 0 to 1 to scale. So, but I think to your question, Yash, like how should people be thinking about it? One is, I think, truly identify what is your method of learning. Some people like to read a lot. Some people are
Watch
impatient.
videos.
I'm impatient. Yeah, some people like to watch videos. I'm highly impatient. So I'm like, okay, how do I give me stuff to build? Give me stuff to and I like talking to people. So I think one of my things was immediately start playing around with ChatGPT. How do I apply it for marketing? So created a bunch of things around that. And then the best way to also teach. So the best way to actually learn is to also teach. So if you're hey, I'm going to teach somebody, then
Right.
you're forced to kind of get into that mode. But I think what I am trying to do right now is one is be around people that are doing something which is more deep AI tech. And I think Lizer is one of the companies which I feel it's got a sweet spot in hey, what LLM should we be using? How do you launch AI focused chatbots quickly? So I think I'm trying to immerse myself by actually working with folks and nothing like that. Nothing will come close to you delving 100% in that space by actually working with other
Right.
folks. And I think, over a period of time, I also realized that my skill set is more tip of the arrow stuff, marketing, sales, GTM. And I think I will truly not, maybe I need to figure a way out to hit that skill set or work with people that have the skill set, which is we will launch products faster. We will iterate on products faster, So just partnering with someone also who's doing something interesting will just open up a different dimension,
Right.
know. So yeah, so I would say if people can start doing internships, I think books you can read, you can read blogs, it's cool. I see so much traction around marketing, which is top 5 tools, and then
Right.
everyone's 2,000 clicks. There's just so much hula around it, but who really remembers what tool it was till you actually use it and play
True.
around with it and teach it, right? So that's what I would recommend. I think even from a learning around AI, it'll touch every part of our learning. So you don't have to go super deep. I think it'll come down to if you're in the data science space, how do I apply this tool in data science? On marketing, how do you apply it in marketing? So yeah, so I think that learning is needed.
Wow. Perfect. So, I mean, thanks to break the myth that you can take a transition from, whatever background you're coming from to whatever, aspiration you have towards the AI ecosystem. So you can definitely, and you are a live example, you're coming from a different background, learned it hard way with the founders and, and the AI enthusiast and learned it the best, right? So I recently read about your LinkedIn profile and the banner, the chat agent and search agents, right? So I want you to throw a light about it. Like if somebody is watching this video who is coming from that AI niche, right? Because I personally have received many consultancy projects from tier one companies saying that, hey, we want to build the agents or we want to build the bots, right? How do we do it? So if you can just throw a light, that would be great from the subject matter expert point of view.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think I want to just set the context also that I'm also learning a lot along the way. Like my knowledge may be better than someone who's trying to get in, but nowhere compared to, let's say, who's someone who's actually, let's say, who's an AI ML engineer, right? But I think to your question, Yash, like, so there are different ways in which you can build Gen AI apps today, right? So one, what people are doing is, let's say there's a SaaS, like all these tools that are being built today, they are essentially being powered by ChatGPT, right? So that's your, let's call that the large language model. And you have different kinds of large language models. You have the open source ones, and then you have the closed source one, right? So open source are like the Mistrals, Llamas of the world, Mistral, right? And then the ChatGPTs of the world of the closed source. So what if you had to look at it as a framework? Your baseline infrastructure is usually your AWS, your Microsoft, so that kind of forming, and they are the ones who are buying GPUs from NVIDIA. So then compute is what you truly need for a lot of like running these LLMs. So base layer is your infrastructure, then come your LLMs, right? And then after the LLMs is your middle layer. Now the middle layer which is around like, how can I truly build an AI app quickly? So you have something called LangChain, which is they give you the building blocks to say, hey, combine this for, let's say, search, combine this for a certain specific function, right? So you kind of put these building blocks together. You have an AI engineer to tune and put these building blocks to finally say, here is the chatbot, right?
Right.
So that's one. Then you have something called SDKs, which we function in, which is like, hey, we've already done all the building blocks together, and we're giving it to you like a pizza, dude, like a frozen pizza, saying you just need to heat it and then you need to use it, right? Then there are also a lot of companies are very quickly able to just power it using, so they have something like an API that connects to ChatGPT, and then I can just power my front end or power my product with the model, and I can start using it. So maybe I'm just getting into the complexity of it, but you have these building blocks, and then over and above that, then becomes the front end, which is like how people are interacting with it. So that could be a Streamlit, that could be a React, a Node.js, and then finally the apex is you measuring the analytics around it, right? So, but I think mostly today, if people want to get started off, I think the smartest thing is go to ChatGPT, get the premium version, play around with all their things in the store, as well as like go to a custom GPT and build your own GPT. Because at the core of it's coming down to prompting. How good can you prompt a certain model to get an output?
So how would you, let's say, explain AI to a 5-year-old if you had to explain it? So because there are still people who in India, and specifically, the awareness is really low yet. They understand that AI, but still they don't understand what is AI. And in specifically, if AI, then generative AI, what is a branch of Gen AI? So if you can just explain to a 5-year-old, that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, the smartest thing to do is go to ChatGPT and ask, hey, explain AI to me like a 5-year-old. But the way I think about it is the human brain is supremely complex. We are trying to mimic the way the brain works by putting it into a artificial being, right? Which could be a computer, which could be a supercomputer, which could be some form of compute. And if you truly look at the intelligence, right? Like if you had to break down the word intelligence, what makes humans supremely intelligent is we are able to take patterns, things that are not necessarily connected, but maybe connected, and come up with new concepts.
Okay.
So the creative aspect of what makes us creative is, hey, we have the ability to create, right? So So I think what has happened so far is the whole field of AI is trying to hit a point where, so there are certain, at least so far, you have something called artificial narrow intelligence, which is like, hey, it's very good at taking a specific niche and then being able to give you output or recommendations based on things. We are trying
Right.
to move to a like artificial general intelligence is, hey, how can we be
AGI.
smarter than human, right? So,
True.
so we are essentially trying to create supremely smart human beings in the computer or in the non-organic world. That's how I look at it. I think generative AI is a subset of AI where you're using what they have done is they have scraped all this data that's in the world.
Okay.
They have trained these models to predict what can come next.
Right.
So you're generating what the next word is. So it's like earlier models used to be, hey, I put 100 pictures of cat and then it's like, is that a cat? Yes or no.
Right.
Generative intelligence is, I have 100 pictures of cat. Hey, give me a new picture of a cat, and it gives you a new picture, I guess. But today, generative AI is at least dabbling in generating text, generating audio, generating speech, generating video, and generating code. Maybe that's the 5 kind of use cases of generative AI today. And then everyone's building stuff on that.
Right. So I remember, this was shared by Ansh only. And as I said, he's one of my favorite creator around AI. He talked about, if I want to explain it to a 5-year-old, right? I'll say, if you have watched, Doraemon, Nobita is the prompt engineer. He basically asks the question, and the next thing what Doraemon does is come with a gadget. So Doraemon is basically the Gen AI, and Nobita is basically the prompt engineer. A classic example, but yeah, so it was very easy to remember. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's not going to be the perfect version of it, but it was close, right? So he said that Nobita is the world's worst prompt engineer, because whenever he asked something, there was an different tool only which is coming out of from Doraemon's pocket. So yeah, I mean, great. So, and coming to some, again, like LLM, right? When we say LLM, it said that it is very difficult to build an LLM, your own LLM. 2 years back, right? And in India, because you need obviously the supercomputer, you need the chips, right? So why it is so difficult for any small startup to build an LLM? Because we have seen only the great players like obviously Microsoft, OpenAI, Nvidia. They're only playing in the AI space. So let's say you are starting a new startup. So is it easy to build an LLM? And what is the problem which we are facing in India also regarding the data sets?
So actually, it's not very hard to build an LLM. So if you go to Hugging Face, there are close to already 500,000 LLMs,
right?
500,000 LLMs. It is supremely difficult to build a complex LLM that has multiple data points. Like if you look at they're saying ChatGPT 5 is going to have 1 trillion parameters. Others 175 billion parameters. You have LLMs that have been trained on 1 billion parameters, right? So it is very difficult to build a model that is super intelligent across all areas.
Okay. No, but why there is a culture in India which is still, because obviously in Silicon Valley, we have seen that people know like how to build LLMs, and, currently we just know how to integrate the GPT algo or GPT APIs into the website, right? Front end website. But building an LLMs is always said that it is going to be very expensive for startups.
It's expensive because of compute. It's expensive because to train a lot of these large language models, you need energy, you need chips, and you need to most probably host it locally. Like you need to buy the entire grid,
right,
and own it. And so you'll see that's why a lot of AI startups are like, hey, you need to raise $30 million. Like Starvum is raised 41 mil, which is a GenAI based startup from India. But the top 10 AI startups have all raised anywhere between 40 million to $1 billion, right? So I think that's how I look at it. And then there's just generally a big dearth of chips today, which is that's why like apparently Nvidia really leads uh, leads the pack, I think, in chip design. It's not so much about like manufacturing chips, and they have figured a way out to design the chips to make it supremely efficient from a computing standpoint.
Okay.
So I don't. It's not so much that Indians are not making LLMs. I think the large language models, which are
Complex.
supremely complex, require a lot of money. And I think sometimes it can come down to how bullish are we as a culture? No,
Right.
like how many startups? Like if I think it's not fair for us to compare India to the US because for every AI startup that's getting $40 million in India, there'll be like 10 AI startups because you're comparing two economies which are also massively different in size,
Right.
right? So I think that's how I look at it. But you'll see a lot of AI startups from India that are getting funded. I can tell you Y Combinator from the last batch, I think 25% of those
Wow.
folks were Indian. For everything AI, we actually got into the Antler program. Close to 20-25% of the startups are all looking at AI. But again, it's like which is the problem that you want to solve, right? Some people are saying I want to solve maybe problems only at the application layer, but just for real estate, right? Like I'll build a tool which is just for real estate,
Real estate. Yeah.
or I'll build something which just for e-commerce, right? So I think it also comes down to like what kind of problems do you want to solve and how hard is the problem? I think.
Perfect. So I just read it recently, like Satya Nadella and Microsoft, right, are actually investing around 2 million by 2025 in India AI ecosystem. And why they are doing this is obviously they are predicting by 2027, India will be the number one country to have AI engineers, right? Eventually, we were always the IT, hub for the world. There was a program known as AI Odyssey, something like that, which I remember. And they just started this a year back. And in fact, in this budget also, if you see, the government has given almost, I remember the amount that is 24,863 crores. So that is almost, 24,000 crores. So they are investing to build an institute. There are 3 institutes which are coming for AI from the government, and they're also focusing more on, getting the chips, getting the GPUs, right? So I believe that there is going to be a great future for Indian ecosystem towards startup. And like I want to understand from you, like you have been working with so many founders, right? So what would be the red flags for all the AI founders right now if they're starting their own AI based startup, right? So if you want to advise the founders, like, hey, if you're onboarding more co-founders, what would be the skill set which you will be looking at, and what would be the red flags if you can advise them?
Good question. I think skill set standpoint, products are becoming super commoditized, dude.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, if you are able to build a brand, if you're really good at marketing, I think you should definitely have that person in your founding team, someone who can sell, someone who can market. Obviously, like a tech co-founder who can build a stack out for you. It helps. I think 2 co-founders, maybe 3. Usually the mix, I don't think the mix has changed so much. Like it's still usually a tech product marketing or tech product sales, right? So I think or 2 tech co-founders and then like, someone kind of evolving on the business side of things. So people with complementing skill sets, I still think that's the way to go.
But do you believe that Solopreneur, sorry to interrupt, but do you believe Solopreneur can create a unicorn, AI unicorn?
Sam Altman was talking about it, no? Saying like, hey, he feels like $1 billion company come from one person. I mean, sure, right? It may be possible. I've done the solo journey and it's no fun. It's not easy at all.
Can we go in depth about it? Yeah. I mean, I want to know about this. I want to know about your failures as a solopreneur and your problems and whatever. How did you, solve this also?
I truly believe I haven't crossed the cliff with my entrepreneurial journey. I think it'll happen. It'll happen soon, but I think in the past it hasn't happened. Masterlife was a solo journey. I ran a performance marketing agency. That was a solo journey. When I started everything here, that was solo. Solo as in obviously you have a team with you, but like the founding journey is solo. And you start with a lot of momentum. You can move things faster.
Mhm.
Like off the ground, like you can get a product up and running in like a month and a half. But I feel like sometimes it's almost like, uh, like as much as the whole marriage institution is being questioned today, I think life can be a lot more fulfilling if you have someone in your life as a partner that you can move forward with, right? And I think it increases the probability of longevity because you go through self-doubt. If you can distribute the load, if you can distribute the stress, then like you're less in your head, which I think is super important, right? Uh, in with solo journey, sometimes I've seen like, man, I'd be feeling super stressed. I'm like, I need to sleep,
Hmm.
And what if I had like somebody I can just speak to about that in that moment who has super high context, and like in 30 minutes we're out and we're back to executing. So right, so like I think time as the metric in terms of anchor may be most important. So I wouldn't recommend solo journeys to most people. It's hard.
Okay.
There's a reason why YC also says don't do it
Mhm.
because. But I have seen solo founders also succeed. It's just
Okay.
likelihood is low. It's like saying, dude, like, do you need to be broke to be a millionaire? Like, you have to go through the journey of like, having to like rough it out on the ground, or dude, like, likelihood of you may be making money through corporate high tech paying job over seven,
Right.
8 years, like so stuff like that. I think, but yeah, I think coming back to your question, founding team, yes, and I think truly figure out what is unique to you. You do you have an advantage in distribution?
Mhm.
Do you have an advantage in data sets? Um, and I think like do you have advantage in access?
Okay.
Like because what's happening is people who already have access are able to build Gen AI stuff quickly and then they're selling it, upselling. No?
Right.
So like that's what I'm saying. Building stuff has become easier today.
Wow.
So yeah, so I would stay away from. So that's why it might help to build a unique brand, like your own. Like Yash is built like this individual brand, and then
Hmm.
Yash is selling this product, and then it's like, hey, I closely connect with Yash, and I'm buying from him. You
Right.
know, so influencer-led brands, I think, would be interesting in the future also, especially globally, and their teams will also change. I think marketing teams now should start having someone in tech. Like you should have
Mhm.
someone who can just build products and use that as a lead gen instead of
Wow.
having a traditional action. Yeah, I also believe you should hire someone on the community side early on from your team. I think your teams will get smaller and you should keep them smaller.
Lean
Like I
teams.
don't think you need more than, yeah. It's funny. A lot of people say this. You look at the seed funded Indian startups versus seed funded US startups. Almost 1:5. You'll have a 15% team in the US, you'll have 75 people in India. I'm like, and most people in the US wonder, why do we have so many people?
Right.
And I get like, human capital can also be quite commoditized. But yeah, anyway, but that's for another day.
Perfect. So AI is fad. There is a series of reels which are going right now, as you said, creators. So the way blockchain came in, the blockchain left, and then AI came in. AI is a fad, right? That's what people are saying. But eventually, we know, like we both know, because AI will coexist. So, what would be the use application? Like, if you can give me, like, give the entrepreneurs the next 5 ideas, right? Which will be like uh, I would say a gold mine for them. Like, this is something which you can actually go for, and this is something which you can build in AI. So, if you want to talk on that.
Yeah. Uh, by the way, I don't believe blockchain is also a fad. I think what ends up happening is when
Regulation.
all these commercial applications, no, they are hyped up on the B2C side, but they end up having massive applications on the B2B side, and they continue staying on the B2B side. So
Wow.
blockchain is still powering a lot of like banks today, right? It's super easy to do transactions globally. It's cheaper. It's faster, right? I'm still talking to companies that are trying to fractionalize ownership
Hmm.
using blockchain, right? Using NFTs and blockchain. So like, I think unfortunately with crypto, there was a massive B2C angle to it, where people thought there's intrinsic value in each of those like
Mm-hmm.
new tokens or new currencies that were coming out, but essentially they didn't have. right? So, but with AI, I also feel what will happen. You're seeing a lot of B2C stuff that's picking up today. Like
Right.
everyone's talking about top tools and all, and it will finally become the backbone of a lot of applications.
I'm going to ask that at the end of the episode. What are your favorite tools?
One of my favorite tools. I think AI is like building a mobile app. It's like the internet. It's like it'll touch everything. So I wouldn't make it industry agnostic, but in terms of opportunities or industry specific, sorry, in terms of opportunities, it does help to go after industries that are slow in adoption. Right? Like they would look at this tech and go like, oh my God, like how can like insurance, banking, real estate, right? I see opportunities in using AI to do a lot of this stuff. I personally feel entrepreneurs should move away from all application stuff. They should try to move more towards B2B. I think there's lots of money to be made on the implementation side of it. I'm seeing companies today making $700,000 a year in 7 months.
Oh, okay.
Just helping companies implement GenAI use cases.
So let's say, like, are you talking about building for them, training for them? Like, what is it? Like, can you just give me a use application towards the B2B also?
So we were talking about use cases, right? So I think in terms of use cases, what we're seeing is there are 5 main products that people want. Okay, so it's like, I have a chat GPT, give me the chat GPT version on my data.
Right.
Okay, so like, let's call it a chat bot, but they're not calling it bots, they're calling it agent.
Agents, yeah.
The bot can seem very robotic. Agent is like Agent Smith, I guess. It's like a smarter version of it, right? So, but yeah, so there's chat. So it's like give me the private chat setup. Have you played around with Perplexity?
Yeah.
So Perplexity, for those who are listening, is basically like, it's like Google, but it's like conversational search, right? With links and stuff. So people now are like, hey, I want conversational search on my data. I want conversational chat. I want generators. I should be able to create content, video, audio, text, but on my data, right? And I keep saying on my data, that means they sometimes like, hey, I want to create it locally. I don't want to necessarily connect to a chat GPT to do it. I want to protect my data.
Right.
Then the fourth one is data analysis and visualization. I have all this data, bro. Give me graphs, give me insight.
BI.
Right?
BI Tableau.
BI. Exactly. BI Tableau. And the cool thing about Tableau, no, they're already becoming AI generated within their platform, right? And then finally, the last one is automation. Automation of workflows. Can I put multiple agents together to do automation? So now these 5 are products that people want. But in terms of application, dude, they want to make everything, they want to become supremely productive across all verticals,
yeah.
right? And I can maybe read out some stuff, right? So like, for example, then in energy sector, somebody want to do energy consumption analysis. So they want to analyze different energy usage patterns, and then they want they want the LLM or the AI to give recommendations based on what they should be doing. Okay, it's not about replacing humans. I think it's more about I was doing this session with Domino's, and they were like, hey, 70% of my time I spent looking at data, and 30% of my time I spent creating decks. So like, can AI in a way help me create all those recommendations and then create a deck? Right? So I think that's how people are looking at it. I think a lot of companies still haven't figured out what is the actual thing that I can put in production. Because what's happening today is you want absolute accurate data when it comes to these LLMs. And there's still, especially when it comes to healthcare, you can't have any margin of error, right? So the company are still playing around. They already budgeted, saying, okay, I can spend $50,000, I can spend $150,000 on this. POCs are being created, but they're not necessarily going live yet with these AI applications. But that's where we are at. I think everyone's excited about it.
Wow. So, according to you, like, let's say I had I'll just name it, but so Mumbai Port, right? Basically, they came out to me and saying that, hey, you know what? We have exports and import data. Like, there are so many things which are coming in. And we wanted a bot on our website saying that, hey, these are the FAQs usually asked by the agents, right? how much would be the commissions, and like how would be the vendorship LOI or LOR, the letter of intent or something like that, which is sent to them, right? So how can we automate this, and how can we create bots for it? And as you rightly mentioned, right, they want a personalized, hyper personalized bots or agents for themselves. They are not dependent on GPTs or something which is external. But my question to you would be, so currently, as I know that you have been building LLMs and uh, agents for the company B2B companies, right? So how uh, how would be the sales cycle look like how sales cycle look like for this? Because and how do you convince the orthodox or the traditional thinking, saying that, hey, we had around 100 spocks, this 100 spocks will be diluted to 2 or 3 spocks who will just evaluate and who will build this particular bot. So how do you convince such pitch decks or the decks which you go to and show to your clients?
I mean, I think the first way to always start is like with your personal network where the trust is already kind of set up, right? Like
Mhm.
1 degree of separation, let's say there are 20, 30 people in your LinkedIn or in your space that
Mhm.
you can be like, hey, let me set this up for you as like, let's create this chatbot together. You don't have to pay me for it, but hey, if you're able to implement it, X, right? So you get inroads with sales through your referral and your personal network. Uh, but I think from a convincing standpoint, nothing comes close to actually seeing them play with it and seeing the results and being like, oh my God, this is cool. Right.
Right.
So for example, like at Lizer, we have actual ways in which you can play around with it. Like Yash can come and put his website URL and then you can start asking questions on the website. They'll be like, okay, this is cool. Now how do I implement it? Right.
Hmm.
There are also SaaS tools that do that. And I think the cool thing about some SaaS tools is you can get started right away. You don't have
Oh,
to, right? Like I put my credit card, like so there's a tool called Arstern, ARSURN. You asked me
okay.
what are my earlier, like you asked me what
Right.
my favorite tools are. This is maybe one of the better tools, but
Okay.
what you can do is you can just put your URL and up to 60 pages, it'll index your website for free. And then you can start asking questions. And then you can
Oh,
ask any questions. And if you ask a question which is totally outside the context of the website, also it'll answer because the tool is powered by ChatGPT or rather GPT-4,
got
right?
you.
So that's what I meant. Like it's like, hey, I have a nice brand. That's my UI. It fits in
Mhm.
here. What they are doing is they are powering their application using GPT-4.
Mhm.
Every time someone makes a query, they actually have to pay,
Right.
let's say, 2 cents to GPT-4, and then
Mhm.
in return then they will charge you $9 a month, $10 a month, and then figure out what
I
kind
was
of
going to
pricing
ask you,
you should
like, what would be the average? So, if you can just throw a light, because this will actually clear many, many, how do I say, expectation setting for all the clients who are expecting that, hey, I want to build a bot, right? So, what is the average? I know it's obviously subjective and the scale all at the data is, but what is the average price you basically quote, or the client has to pay to the person who's building the bot? So what is the average you
Right,
have in enterprise or the uh, individuals, startups?
right. See, dude, like with enterprises, there is not 50 pages of data, right? We're talking maybe 20,000 pages, lots of rows, lots of columns, different databases, different sources from it. So we have something called SDK,
Okay.
right? So the frozen pizza analogy that I gave you for a chatbot. So it's like importing a line of code and you can start using the chatbot.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we actually charge per SDK. So it's like in anywhere between $250 to $1,000 a month to use the SDK. But the beauty of using an SDK is it's a flat fee. You don't get charged for, let's say, per user. 20 users could use it and it's still $1,000. And
Okay.
on the enterprise side, usually for SaaS, we have multiple users using it starts getting expensive because they charge per user,
Right.
right? And also your data is secure because you run it locally, you're pulling data out. But today, dude, if you're okay with a simple solution with like SaaS, you can start with $10 a month. You have AI tools
Mm.
that you can pay $10 a month and do it. If you're looking for
Mm.
something which is more like, uh, hey, I want multiple folks to use it. I want, my My teams use it using this like my SDK. That you have an open source version of ours, which is free. You have a $250 version. You have $1,000 version per SDK. So it's like you want to install one chatbot, it's $1,000. But if you want to install another, let's say the search and summarizer, hey, that's another SDK. So you start paying per SDK after some time. Then you have also like implementation partners, right? Like you might want something super customized over and above, and that can become expensive. That can become you're paying for dev teams, you're paying for the time. We're talking about could be $150,000 project, could be a $600,000 project, right? Like that could become massive. Yeah. So, but companies are willing to spend. Enterprise mid-market folks are willing to spend.
So when you compare it with the human turnover, definitely it's going to be cheaper for them, right? So because if they are doing this manually, I'm very sure they have to hire like 1,000 people, right, to do the same job. So if you compare it that way, I think it will be more cheaper.
See, in the US also, they're very tech tool first. They're always open because human capital is generally very expensive. In India, however, they're a little more like, how can we throw humans at the problem? It's like, brother, should I get a SaaS tool or should I put one analyst who will pay 35, 40,000 rupees and I can continue running my life, right? So, I think you don't have to hire as many people maybe in the future, but I think it's also about creating mind space for things where you can create new things, right? Like if you think about all the stuff that we do, which is quite mundane and boring, let's say some people do data entry, some people send emails of summary notes. So yeah, okay, now let me summarize and send this out. Imagine we don't have to do all that other stuff. So you and I can focus on creating things. Maybe we'll create a podcast, right? We'll create products, right? So imagine you did a podcast, entire thing is transcribed, converted into a blog, right? Somebody broke that down. AI broke that into shorts. AI uploaded it. Then Yash could do more podcasts.
Right.
You could do more like high-end editing stuff. That's what I mean. I think that when people worry, oh my God, it's going to take up jobs. I think I was listening to one of the podcasts also, Sam Altman saying, maybe in the short term it will feel that way, but like in totality, man, like you want a job opportunity to create, it will be immense.
It's just that you need to basically upskill yourself and take a transition in such a way that, and I know that you have been training at one of the India's leading startup, right? That is Growth School. So I want to know, like, how is the story there? Like, how many learners you have upskilled? So, and why are you associated with something? What motivated you, right, to upskills people into AI?
I mean, I like to teach in general. I think teaching is cool. I think long term, at some point in time, I think I will want to teach at a B school, do like a 3 credit program. Could be around marketing, could be around AI, who knows? Could be around life. But I think I was just motivated to do it because it's a way for me to also really accelerate my learning. And there was an opportunity to also make money. So those two things kind of came
That's
about.
honest.
Yeah. So I think those are two interesting things. But I also long term, I'm thinking of how do I become really like I'm already seeing a lot of AI influencers, if you want to call it. I want to go a little deeper. I don't want to be the person who speaks about tools. I want to speak about integrations, what to build, like more from a product standpoint rather than a top marketing standpoint.
Wow. So I can see you like a B2B guy who will go around and talk about like how can you can integrate various AI technologies into their own enterprise solutions. Right. Great. So I mean, coming to the fun part. Yeah. Sorry.
I was just saying. I was saying I'm hoping.
Oh. So coming to the fun part of the podcast. I mean, I want to start. Like very, very like super easy question, but really will be helpful for many people. ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini or Gemini, however you want to pronounce it. And then now we have Twitter is Grok, right? So like, have you used that?
Gemini, I haven't used, but the application is quite different. Like actually, maybe Bard is being compared more to. So Gemini is the LLM that people will use to power some stuff. Like I don't think it has a chat layer to it. Whereas Bard has the chat layer to it. But
no,
your
so
point, like,
I just used it today. and
you
they
did?
have
Okay.
actually converted the bot to Gemini, and
Okay.
eventually it's a conversational bot. So
Okay.
when I asked Gemini, like, how are you better than ChatGPT, it said that, see, we both are very different. I am more factual and they are more creative. That was the answer. So I was
Nice.
like, wow, that's a crazy answer. So yeah, I mean, I just saw it because I saw the video also, the introductory video on Hugging Face and Product Hunt also. So tell me the three channels or YouTube channels you follow to be AI relevant.
I actually surprisingly on YouTube listen to a lot of like, oh, Sam Altman with Joe Rogan, Sam Altman with, I go down that path usually. So I've seen Sam Altman with Trevor Noah, Sam Altman with Bill Gates, it's also on Spotify.
DataCam. Have you heard about them?
I
So
have heard about data.
one of the,
Mhm.
I mean, the best channel for I would suggest, because they have actually taught everything from scratch, right? And they have made it so easy for people to learn and upskill themselves into AI. So Data Camp is there. Then there is Rajendra Goswami's channel. I forgot the name, but it is also doing great. So they are also hitting around 8 million subscribers. So these two channels I would also personally recommend.
Dude,
Next.
get these two to sponsor your video, man. You're giving them, yeah, you're giving them free advertising. Tell them, listen, I need you to
Guys,
put some
you need to
money into
sponsor us.
this. Yeah.
Sure. Perfect. I mean, amazing. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, guys, to show your support and love to this episode. आप यहाँ एंड तक मेरा वीडियो देख रहे हैं, इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि आपको ये पॉडकास्ट बहुत ही ज़्यादा पसंद आया है. शेयर दिस टू वन पर्सन जिसकी ज़िंदगी ये पॉडकास्ट से बदल सकती है. आई एम वेरी श्योर कि आपको मेरे से और बढ़िया कंटेंट चाहिए, एंड दिस इज़ व्हाई आई एम रिक्वेस्टिंग यू टू सब्सक्राइब मी राइट नाउ. सी यू इन द नेक्स्ट एपिसोड.